All right, everyone, welcome to another episode of the Sovereign CEO podcast. I have with me today my friend Ricki Heller. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
I haven't seen you in forever. Ricki and I have been working together for, I guess, a couple years now. And yeah, I've learned a lot about what you do, and I think it's really awesome the work that you do with clients. So I thought we would chat about all things book writing today.
That sounds like fun.
Ricki, what's your official title? What do you do for people?
I'm a book coach. So nice and simple, straightforward. I help people to write their books and
Awesome.
get them done.
Okay. And like what's the backstory? Like how did you get into this? What are some of the books that you've written? Like when did you start writing? Go back as far as you would like, but like how did this business get started?
Well, I mean, I started writing as soon as I knew how to write. Like literally, as soon as I learned how to put words together, I started writing, and I used to write on paper towels in my mom's kitchen and that kind of stuff. But then, so I went on to teach English for about a quarter of a century, and I was constantly immersed in writing, in terms of studying it. But I also kept up with my own writing, and then as you know, I had this sort of detour because I got really sick and I went off to study holistic nutrition to find out more about my illness. And I ended up practicing in holistic nutrition for about 14 years, I think it was. While I was still teaching, I was doing this part time. Eventually, I quit my teaching job and did the holistic nutrition full time. And then when the pandemic hit, I mean, I was home a lot like everybody, going through my files on my computer, and I came across this folder filled with like dozens of stories and articles and things I had written when I had had a sabbatical like 10, 15 years before. And it just hit me. I wanted to do this again. I was missing it. I couldn't believe I had all this stuff that had just been sitting there while I was working on my holistic nutrition. So I decided at that moment I was going to go back into the world of words and, helping people write and my own writing as well. And so, like, I had been doing some writing throughout the time I was practicing, but it wasn't the kind of writing I'm doing now. So, I have my very first published book was actually a college English textbook about how to write an essay, and that was way back when. And then when I was doing holistic nutrition, I had three books published. One was self-published, and two were with publishers. So what I had been doing most recently was around food and health. And what I'm doing now is more really focusing almost exclusively on personal stories, memoir, people who are writing about their business or related to their business in the holistic field. So those are the two main focuses or foci are the holistic health business owners, as well as people who are writing their own stories, because some people are writing books for personal reasons too.
Yeah, 100%. And those first books, maybe not the scholastic book about writing essays, but your holistic health ones got quite a bit of attention. Didn't Ellen DeGeneres have one of those books on her show, or she recommended it?
Yeah, that was my self-published book, believe it or not, and that came about because, and I always think of this as a great lesson for entrepreneurs, because when I started my second business, I really wish I had had more of that mindset. I was such a newbie. I wasn't even thinking about business at that point. I had just self-published this book. I had a pretty popular blog and a fairly large audience. So I knew, a lot of people had asked for the book and they wanted the book. But I had this idea, wouldn't it be great, because I had just heard that Ellen went vegan at that time, wouldn't it be great if I could get it on a TV show? And I found one day on, at the time, Twitter, Ellen was following me. And she was, again, I think it was back in like 2010 or something. And she was very adamant that she wrote all her own tweets, like she was the one in charge of her account. So I thought, oh, she's paying attention. So I just had this crazy idea to start tweeting her about my book and how I wanted to be on her show. And this was like 9 in the morning. I was on a roll. I was making jokes about her show. And then I put the TV on in the other room and I'd run back and forth and say things about her actual show, what was going on the show. I was having a blast. And I just did this for literally from 9 to 5. It was like my work day. I was having so much fun. I turned off the computer, went to bed. That was the end of it. And then a few days later, I noticed that my blog was getting like massive traffic. And when I went to look on the back end where it was coming from Warner Brothers, and it was coming from Ellen's website. And she had recommended my book on her site. So she really was reading her tweets, I guess. She had seen all of my tweets. She checked out my book, and they had put a recommendation for it on her site. And that was like, I was so excited, but also I remember my legs were shaking for like 10 minutes when I saw that. Yeah.
I hope
So it
people
was,
are listening. Like what, like in the online space, you have access to anyone. Like that is really cool. You had an idea, how would I get on the Ellen show? And we actually have access to really anyone if you're adamant about
I,
like pursuing this connection.
And I do have to say, because somebody asked me this once, they said, like, how did you have the nerve? Didn't you think that she might think you were trolling her, or, like some kind of weirdo? And I said, you know what? At that moment, I wasn't thinking about that at all. I was just having fun. And I think if I had stopped to say, oh, what's she going to think about it? Should I do this? Shouldn't I wouldn't have done it. And
Yeah.
nothing would have happened, right? So yeah, there's really something to be said for going with your instincts, and also if it feels good to you, and I wasn't harming anybody, I was just making jokes.
Yeah. Have you internet stalked anyone else since?
You know what? I don't think I have.
You probably should.
Yeah, I should try to think of some way I can do it now with this business and stalk somebody else. That would be fun.
Yeah. I mean, like that's what we're always trying to do in business, right? Like what did we do that worked and then do that again?
Yeah,
And I think lots of us have those moments where we've done something that worked really well and then we just like didn't do it again.
yeah. And I think lots of us have had those moments where we think of an idea and
Yeah.
then we stop ourselves because, oh no, I can't do that. And that's really the moment where you have to leap in and just go for it.
Yep. Yeah, I remember it took me years to muster up the courage to run my first yoga teacher training when I had the studio. And then when I finally got the balls to go and do it, it took me no time to write it, launch it, sold it out, made an incredible amount of money, and then just never did it again. I'm like, what? What was that? There's almost such a relief, I think, after you like go through that moment. And a lot of us forget, like, no, 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 hit the repeat button, go and do that again.
I know. And also, isn't there something, I think, because I know that that's extremely common, right? That a lot of people after their first successful launch or whatever, the next one isn't very good. And I've had that experience too. And I think part of it is it's that inner voice saying either you have to do just as well this time and you're afraid you won't, or that was just a fluke and I'm afraid to confirm that it was just a fluke. So we don't push ourselves to do that kind of thing again. And I think it's a shame.
Hmm. So you've pivoted to writing different kinds of books right now, even though those other ones were a success. Why the change?
Well, like I said, I mean, it's because it's a different kind of writing, and that's the kind of writing I was doing growing up. Like I've always written fiction, actually, and what's called personal narrative, which are personal stories. Like those were the first things I had published, even before my textbook. And so it's been where my heart is. And I felt like I felt like I had come to the end of the road with the Candida stuff, to be honest. I had switched up my coaching from specific protocols for Candida to more one-on-one coaching around living with that lifestyle. So it was more like life coaching. And I realized that was the part of it that I really, really loved. For the other stuff, really, people should be going to a functional medicine doctor or a naturopathic doctor, not somebody like me, because I don't have the medical training. And that's what they wanted the most. But what I really enjoyed was getting to know the people and helping. I hate to use the word because it's such a cliche, but helping with mindset around changing the way you live, because
Mm.
that's really what I had expertise in. I had completely changed my diet. And I haven't, that was in 2009. I haven't cheated on that diet since 2009. So
Wow.
I've learned how to live a completely different way. And I think for most people, that was the major issue. But I realized I'd come to the end of that. and it just felt like I'd reached a point where there wasn't much more I could offer people if I really felt like they needed to be seeing a doctor at that point in terms of what they were coming to me for.
Mm.
And I felt like I could transfer that kind of coaching to the world of book writing, because I mean, it all comes down to the same. We all have the same insecurities. We all doubt whether we can do the thing we want to do. We all need to stay motivated. We all need to find a path that we can follow that feels like it's something we can actually accomplish. Those are the same skill set, I guess, in both realms. And I feel like because of my lifelong experience with writing and having taught literature and writing for so many years, that I could apply those skills more to this kind of coaching.
That makes a lot of sense. From a fulfillment point for you, like
Mm,
if you write like writing the book and doing it, like check, like that's fun. But then are people using the information? Are they getting results? And usually with people, information's not the problem. Like,
right.
how do you lose weight? Losing weight, not hard. Eat less, move more. Pretty simple,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And you can do that for free. You can go on the internet, you can watch a YouTube video, you can get a gym membership, you can download a program, you can hire a like $3,000 coach. Like it's all over the place, right? But who are the people that are getting results? It's usually the people that commit somehow to some sort of program, a mentorship, a coach, because it's not the information, it's the hand holding, the accountability, the belief shifting. That's actually the problem. So I can see how you would like the coaching around either like at that time dietary things or now
Yeah.
actually getting your book done and dusted. So I
Yeah.
imagine like writing a book, it's the same thing. I could probably just go to the internet. How do I write a book? How do I self-publish? That's not the
Mhm.
problem. That's not the thing tripping people up. What's actually tripping them up?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say first, that's exactly right, right? Like with AI, you can find every bit of information. You can find like what do I need to know in a few seconds, but it's how do I actually do it? What has to happen in here for me to be able to do that? And that's really what coaching addresses. So what I
Mhm.
work with, so what I found universally, and this is so much my story too, is for so many people, especially if, we think we need to be a professional writer, we think we need to either have taken courses or already written something, or like me, somebody who started at age 7, whatever, and has always been writing. But that isn't the case. And even if you started at age 7, I'll never forget when I was teaching the college, my very first semester, I had a friend there who was one of my colleagues, and she was really keen and very confident, beautiful. She could have been a model, this woman. She was just gorgeous. So totally confident. She came to me one day and she said, let's write a book together. And I was like, okay. And we had this great idea. And we did what you call, at the time, it was called a poor man's copyright. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. But
No.
the idea is you write down of course, nowadays it would be different, but you write your idea on a piece of paper, you type it out exactly what your concept is, you put it in an envelope and mail it to yourself. And the idea was there's a date stamp on the envelope, because in those days that was the only way you could trace the date, but you don't open the envelope. And so if anyone else ever stole the idea, you could prove that you had it first, right? So we did this whole
Oh.
process. We sat down for like 3 hours, plotted out the book,
Yeah.
went home, and I sat on it for like 20 years. Never touched it again. And one day I just found it when I was cleaning out my desk. And I was like, oh, that was a great idea. I looked it up. Someone had done it already, of course, but it was that lack of confidence. I mean, here I was teaching English. I was teaching people how to write. And I just felt like, who am I to write this book? I don't know what I'm talking about. And I would say that because of the textbook that I published, the publisher came to me at the time as an English prof at the college. You're always getting these sales reps coming in trying to get you to buy their textbook for your class. So they knew me, they knew what I taught. They offered this a proposal to me where I could write this book, and I thought, again, I was kind of resistant, but the fact was it was literally just taking what I did in the classroom and putting it down on paper. So I thought, okay, I can do that. And then I had the process of working with the editors and learning what happens when you publish a book. if I hadn't done that, I don't think I would have had the nerve to self-publish my first cookbook,
Mm.
because I'd been through the process already and I needed somebody to really encourage me even then. And I was teaching this stuff. So I think for most people, there's just a sense that, either it's imposter syndrome or insecurity or just uncertainty because it's something you haven't done before.
Hmm.
And that's the hurdle that most people need to get over in order to write the book. And, that's going to come back as you're going through the process at different stages. You might have that sense too. That's where a coach can be really helpful, um, just to help you along and to be there as someone to remind you that, yes, you can do this. And then there's all of the sort of technical aspects of it too, of course. You act as a mentor, as a guide, as a teacher on some level. And the other thing that I do, and I don't know if most book coaches do this or not, but because I also work as a developmental editor, that's somebody who looks at an entire manuscript for the book from start to finish and helps to ensure that the structure works really well. So
Hmm.
I have this, I'm going to say ability. I have this ability that I'm not sure is that common, because it seems to be something that a lot of people don't recognize when they're looking at their own manuscripts. But I can see the patterns in the topics, and if there's a need to rearrange things to make it more clear or to make it flow more easily, that's what developmental editing does. So I help people with that kind of thing as they're actually writing their books, so that by the time they're finished, they know that it's put together in the best way possible too, not just the ideas and not just their ability to put the words on the page, but the structure works really well, so that for a reader coming to it, it's going to be really clear and it's going to be easy to follow.
Mm. This is actually really good timing to have this conversation. Um, because of AI, like AI is great. I use it in my business. It saves all kinds of time, helps organize my very ADHD brain. Like there's so many good things. But as far as like things that I want to read and listen to, I'm kind of repelled by it more and more. And I'm not saying don't use it. I use it. I use it. I think if I were to write a book, I would definitely use it to organize my thoughts and my chapters and those kinds of things.
Yeah.
But more and more, I am being drawn to traditional creativity, blank slate, pen to paper, me and my thinking, paper books. I don't even want to read books on my phone anymore or like on these apps.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on writing and creativity in this like AI world? Do you think that people are going to leave like paper books behind and everything is going to be AI, or do you see like the rebellion that I do?
Yeah, I definitely see it. And I think there's a reason for that, because at least for now, AI doesn't have a soul. I mean, it sounds woo to say, but there's a reason why in that Star Trek series, what was it, Next Generation, Picard is reading a paper book in on the Enterprise, right? They had books because there's something about the concrete nature of it, but there have been many studies actually that have shown that when you write with a pen in hand against a piece of paper versus typing on a keyboard, the creativity centers in the brain start firing when you're using your hand. So there's like a direct connection between writing by hand and increasing creativity in the brain. And I know for sure, I've discussed this in my writing group, I think, which I think I have this group every week called Write with Ricki, where we just get together and write. There's like an hour of just focused writing, and we've had this discussion in that group where people will say, "Yeah, certain kinds of writing I have to write by hand." And I know when I wrote my novel, not last year, it's been a couple of years now. When I wrote my first draft of my novel, I always write my first draft of fiction by hand with a pen against paper in a notebook,
Yeah.
and then I transcribe it onto the computer so I can edit it and do all the little tweaks I want to do. But my mind doesn't work the same way. And I spent a lot of years when I was an editor for Simply Gluten Free magazine. I spent a lot of years writing articles. I'm going like this, writing on the keyboard, because I'm so much faster as a typist than I am when I write by hand. But the quality, I won't even say the quality, because it's not like they were poor quality. Everything
Mhm.
was correct, and I had good ideas, and good information. But the almost the style changes, the tone, the voice changes. when I write on a keyboard versus when I write by hand. And I think also people can sense, whether they're aware of it or not, they can sense
Mhm.
when something was written by AI. You know, I'm on this, she's a huge person in the marketing world, and she just started a newsletter. And I guess she had a newsletter, but she's just started what she was calling a personal newsletter. And I got the first one, and it was a story. I won't even say specifically because I don't want to out anybody. But it was a story about her life, what happened on the weekend, let's say. And I'm reading this and I'm thinking, oh my God, that doesn't sound like this person, because I've been following her for years and I know her voice. And it sounded like AI.
I
And then
hate
the
it.
next, oh, I hate it. The
Yep.
next week it was a different voice. I guess either someone had told her or she even had realized it. And now she's writing more like herself again. Yeah. So I think AI is great. I totally agree with you. Like, I use it for helping to organize my thoughts. And, you know, if I have an idea for an article, I might plug it in and say, what am I missing? You know, what points am I missing, or something to that effect. But it will never, I'm going to say it will never replace people. If it does, we're in big trouble, but it will never replace what goes on in here in people. And the other thing that people can keep in mind, and this is why I think storytelling is so important, not only because we're hardwired to respond to storytelling as humans, but because no matter what kind of book you're writing, it could be a book about nuclear physics, I don't care. The personal stories are A, the part that people are going to relate to the most, and
Mhm.
B, the things that belong 100% to you that AI can never touch, because they're your stories.
Yeah.
So I think that's why it's so important for us to really retain that in our writing.
Yeah, I agree. It can replace the productivity,
Mm.
but as a very, like, we have multiple projects going on in my coaching business, and because of my ADHD, I have been studying the brain forever. And the busier I get, the more I notice the negative influences on my brain in terms of memory, my attention span, all of these things. And just like you said, like, typing is different than writing, handwriting. There's lots of these subtle shifts. So I'm noticing being on my computer is very different, for example, than being on social media. Social media is way worse for my brain. And for like simple cognitive preservation, memory enhancement, creativity, I am spending way more time in very human things,
Mhm.
silence, thinking, music, going outdoors, handwriting, reading paper books, because I have noticed the very negative consequences on my brain from the last few years of being in this online digital industry space.
And it seems to be ramping up and getting worse. I mean, I've heard so many people say, I'm just feeling tired of it. And I
Yeah.
mean, and in terms of like for content creators or people who are simple content creators, like online, but also just content creators, creativity is also enhanced by what you just said, like silence, being in nature. And
Mhm.
apparently, a huge problem nowadays because we don't allow ourselves to have boredom anymore. So, you know, and I've noticed this with myself. I'm waiting in line at the grocery store, I'm going to pull out my phone. Like, I never just sit there with nothing in my head. And that's where most of the creative ideas in the past have emerged, when there's nothing else going on in the brain, which is why, you know, the cliche, you get your best ideas in the shower or whatever, because nothing else is going on. So we have to give ourselves that time again, I think.
Yep. And I've noticed the struggle that it takes to problem solve on your own is necessary, because just like
Mm,
I was losing attention and memory by looking at the million screens within the screen on like social media, if you are not in the struggle, I think it was Simon Sinek talking about this recently on Diary of a CEO. We need to problem solve and we need to be in the struggle. Like, I can really think of no greater struggle than like writing a book. Like that is time consuming. We actually really, really need that. I remember downloading the, I think it's called Headspace app, where
Mhm.
you get like 5 minute summaries of all these books. And I was like, oh, this will be amazing. I'll just listen to this when I'm walking the dogs, and I'm going to soak up like 300 books this year. I deleted it immediately. Like
Mhm.
immediately, I could tell I'm not retaining any of this. None
Right.
of this. This is
Right.
completely useless. I don't know, maybe some people find value in it. I found zero value. It made, again, attention worse. We can't bypass struggle, problem solving time. We're trying to right now with AI, and it's actually a problem.
Yeah, not to mention all the other problems that come with AI. I don't want to think about the future of
The
humanity, but
robots taking over.
yeah. Well, and this is an aside, but you heard about the AI that would not turn itself off, even though it had been programmed to accept a command to turn itself off. It actually
I, yeah.
I mean, so what are we looking towards here? But yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting because we always try to avoid struggle. Like that's also human nature, is try to avoid difficult things, but it's through the difficulties that we tend to learn the most, I think.
Mm,
And we tend to transform the most. I mean, that's well known that it's your challenges that bring you to a new place. It's not people who are successful all the time never learn anything new. You have
yeah.
to fail, you have to have challenges to learn new things. So yeah, and I think AI makes it a little too easy sometimes. We just accept that
Yeah.
what AI is giving us is what we should be doing and what we should be writing or saying. Not always the case.
So that makes sense why writing a book obviously serves you on a personal level, right? It's an accomplishment. There's struggle there. How does it serve you from a business perspective? Like you'll hear people say that a book is your best calling card. Why is that? Why does a book make you an authority? How does it help you get attention? What's good about it?
Well, I think exactly that. You immediately gain credibility when you have a book published. This is partly because it shows that you have been able to amass your expertise in this one place. You have enough expertise to put into a book, but also because it tells other people that you are someone who stands out. Even still today, only 2% of people actually publish books. And I think I can't remember now. It's like 80% of people say they want to write a book, but only 2% of that 80% actually write it. And then like something like a small percentage of those actually get it published. So it's not that many people still who
Mhm,
write books. And so it sets you apart in that way. But I
mhm.
think also in terms of just like you were saying, it's a personal accomplishment. It allows you to present, for many people, your business. So like the people that I've worked with who've written business related books, one, for instance, she is a coach for people with ADHD, and her whole book is basically her process. She writes about all the things that she teaches her clients.
Oh, I should
So
get it.
yeah, yeah, it's and it was kind of cheeky too. So yeah, I can tell you here or I can tell you later. But and then one of my other clients who she runs a business for women in menopause, particularly early menopause, because she had to undergo surgery at 41, which sort of triggered menopause for her. So she was very young when she started menopause,
Mhm.
and she's got a podcast. And so her book again was all about this perspective of what happens when we enter menopause and how it's not the end of the world and it's actually a new beginning and so on. So she's bringing all of her knowledge and all of her ideas about basically how to's into the book. So that's what I did with my Candida book as well. It was about 50% guidebook and 50% recipes. And the first half of the book helped people to navigate the diet. So, what happens in those kind of situations? First of all, you're reaching a much broader audience than you otherwise could through a website or, through most other avenues, especially if it's on Amazon, anyone around the world can get it. But with my publishers, they were distributing the book in Australia and places where I couldn't. So people hear of you that might not have otherwise heard of you. It expands your audience that way. But the one of the things that I found, and I know my clients have seen this same sort of thing happen, where like if you think about it, reading a book is a very intimate experience. So somebody could come on a consultation call with me and they talk to me for half an hour, and that's great. If they've been following me online or whatever, they might have an idea of who I am. But if you're going to read someone's book and like you're in your own home, you're in a very intimate setting, either in, your living room or your bedroom, whatever, and it's like one-on-one with you and this person for 300 pages, you really get a feeling that you know this person, and
Yeah.
and whether or not you'd want to work with them. And one of the things that surprised me was, because I had already my coaching business was up and running, but people would contact me after reading my book and say, so do you coach one-on-one? Because they'd read the book, and obviously they would have had to like the information, felt the information was helpful, but they also felt a connection to me that allowed them to reach out. And so people will find that clients will come to you more easily when you have a book.
Mhm.
I mean, if you think about also the other opportunities around that, with a book, you're much more likely to get booked for speaking engagements, because then they have something that they can mention in the bio for various talks, events, that kind of thing. It's very, very useful. And then you can always mention that you have a coaching practice or whatever it is that you're offering at the end of your talk. So lots of ways I think a book can really help you to reach more clients and the public. And don't forget, books are permanent, right? They stay. They have staying power.
I mean, circling back to AI too, if you said only 2% of people are ever actually getting this thing done, it does help you stand out, especially with lots of people with like an info style kind of business. Well,
Yeah.
now we know everyone has access to that information. How do we know that you're not just regurgitating things that you've seen on ChatGPT and you don't actually have this story, this credibility, the proof of pudding? A book really shows that, oh, they're actually deep in the work, because this is not an easy thing to do like AI. So they must know their stuff. It's almost as good as like credentials, putting that next to your name, putting MD, putting PhD.
I would say so, absolutely, because it's your expertise right there in front of them in the book. And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, AI can bang off information in a matter of minutes. But again, people are going to know the difference. And if they follow you, and your book isn't a book that you wrote, people will know the difference too.
Yeah.
Right. So I think it's really important that it's a reflection of who you are. And the other thing, I mean, I find this with every book to some extent, but the first one more than the others, it really is such a confidence booster, because
Mm.
it shows you what you are capable of doing, that you actually have the not only the information, but you have the stick-to-itiveness, you have the diligence, you have the persistence to write this book from start to finish, and you got it done. And I think that then helps you have more confidence for the next project and the next project, that you are able to do hard things.
100%.
Yeah.
What are some examples of how a book has opened doors for your clients or for yourself, like speaking engagements, media, getting clients, that kind of thing?
Well, with the Ellen experience, that was
Yeah,
great. I mean,
that's
you'd
big.
think I would have sold a million books, but she didn't even have an actual live link to my book on there. So I don't think sales changed very much. But what
Yeah.
that did allow me, that was how I acquired my first literary agent, who
Mm,
then helped me get my other books, because there was that credibility there.
mhm.
And also with my last book, I was on, I don't think it exists anymore, Canada AM, which is the Canadian equivalent of Good Morning America or whatever, because I had a book to talk about. I had an area of expertise. By that point, my name was known in the field. So I was on, that was one of the things, but that was the biggest show, but I was on a whole bunch of TV shows and radio shows and things like that. And when you have a book, that's something that you can offer to these people, because uh, even if your name isn't a household word, the fact that you have a book, like I said, lends credibility, especially to people on television, radio,
Mhm.
podcasts, that kind of thing. So it can open doors for you in those ways, that not that those doors would remain completely closed otherwise, but I think it would just take longer, right? You'd have to be more persistent and keep trying if you want to get some of those gigs.
Mhm.
One of my clients, I love this story. So her book, she's the one who wrote the book on menopause called Magnificent Midlife. And she eventually I don't know exactly how it happened, but somebody at the New York Times caught wind of her book, and her book was listed as one of the 7 essential books on menopause in the New York Times. So, and that was simply because her book was out there, people were reading it. I guess word got around. So you just never know. I think it can open a lot of doors for you that otherwise would be more difficult to open.
So some people are straight up making money off of their books. Like if I think about like Stephen King, that's all he does. Even though he's kind of gone a little crazy, he's making lots of money on his books. But for a lot of people, um, it's not necessarily an income producing activity directly, but
Yes.
it's the thing that opens up all these doors that eventually do lead to income as well.
Yeah. So I think if someone is thinking they're going to write a book and that's going to be their 100K income for the year, that's not realistic, especially once, I have it's a free program that's online that people can watch a video of how it's all broken down in terms of your royalties and how much you earn, whether it's self-published, not self-published. You really need to sell a lot of books. I don't know, even professional writers, I don't know any for whom it is their primary or only income. However, having that book, you'd be surprised at how many other things that can lead to that are sources of revenue. So you could develop courses around the topic of the book. You could develop a membership around, which is what I did. I developed a membership for recipes related to the Candida diet. If you've heard of, I think her name's Jen Sincero, if I'm pronouncing it right, who wrote You Are a Badass and You Are a
Oh,
Badass at Making
I
Money.
love those books.
I
Those
love
are
her books. And I went to her site the other day because I'm on her email list, and you only hear from her like once a year. And so she has a live course now that developed out of her books. I think it's 8 weeks a year. And I believe that is the only thing she does live all year. 8 weeks. She has to get dressed up and go in front of a camera 8 times, 8 weeks a year. And the rest of the time on her site, she's got 2 evergreen courses that are like DIY recorded courses, which at some point were live, but now they're recorded. And she doesn't really do much else. That's how she earns her living. So if you can parlay this into a program where, especially if it's like either an evergreen program or one that you only do a few times a year, that could be a great source of revenue that comes as a result of the book, because people will be interested in that if they've read the book and they know who you are and what you do and they want more.
cool.
Yeah.
Um, what's the biggest myth that you see people believing when it comes to actually getting this thing done?
I would say the biggest myth is I can't do it. Whether they say that out loud or not, that seems to be the thing that prevents people from getting started or really diving in. People I've spoken to who've been taking notes for 10 years and they still haven't started writing the book. The idea is there. It's in their heart. They want to write this book. They want to write this book. Why haven't you started? They'll tell you they don't have enough time. They'll tell you they don't know where to begin. But the real reason, just like me with that book in the drawer for 20 years, it's because they don't feel they're capable of doing it. And I want to say the fact that you haven't written a book before does not mean you're not capable of doing it. It's like anything else. If you think about, when you first started taking guitar lessons or you first learned to cook for yourself or whatever it is, yeah, there's a learning curve. You have to learn how to do it. And that's really where I think a coach is essential for people, because for so many people, they really want to get started, but they don't know how. So to put those pieces in place and set up the systems, just like in your business, there are systems so that you can write consistently and write every day and create a habit of writing, and you will see your abilities and your, I'm going to say, enthusiasm really soar as you keep writing, because there's nothing like getting to that point where, I did it. I had this idea and I got it out. I got it on paper and it works.
Yep.
There's, for me anyway, that's such a thrill to really perfect what you're writing. So I think for most people, they just need to get started. They need somebody to keep them accountable so they can actually move through any of those difficult parts where they start to doubt themselves and get it done. And then at the end, there's no better feeling.
I bet. I mean, what What about the process can you describe that maybe makes this idea seem less overwhelming for people? Like, what do they actually have to commit to? Are they writing 4 hours a day? Like, what does it actually look like to get it done?
I think that's another one of the myths, to be honest, that, I must write an hour every single day at the exact same time. Everybody's different. When I wrote my novel, I did, and just to say, I guess for most entrepreneurs it is true, but I create my own schedule. So what I did was I wrote for an hour every morning before I did anything else, because that was my number one priority. So some people do get up earlier to do that kind of thing, but you don't have to. I worked with a writing teacher once who told us she had 4 published novels. She used to write her novels in the grocery checkout while waiting to cash out. She would write a few notes because she had a toddler at home and a baby on the way, and she had no other time to write. And she managed to write an entire novel that way. So you do what you can, and
Yeah.
you but what's most important, I think, more than anything else, is the consistency. So if you have 5 minutes a day, commit to 5 minutes a day. If you have an hour a day, commit to an hour a day, whatever it is. And by the way, my hour a day was only on weekdays. I didn't write on weekends. And I wrote the full draft of my novel in about 8 months, something like that. So it really doesn't have to be this massive undertaking where it feels overwhelming, because don't forget, like, my novel is something like 80,000 words, which is typical for, if you think of a novel. Most business books are about half of that. So if
Hmm.
I could write 80,000 in 8 months, a typical business book can be done in about 4 months, if you're focused and if you commit to the daily writing.
My very first life coach ever, Erin Anderson, she wrote a book called 10 Tiny Truths, and it's the tiniest little book ever. That was the one that she started with. And like even that might be the answer. Like you don't have to write Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. A small book. One of my clients right now, she's writing at 20,000 words. I don't know how many pages that would be. Divide by 250, because it's about 250 words per page. But it's not a hugely long book, right? Like maybe 50 pages or something like that. And yeah, I think that's 50 pages. So it's not huge. And then if you have illustrations and charts and all those things, with most business books, you can do it a little bit at a time. You just reminded me when you said 10 tiny truths, tongue twister there. If you know BJ Fogg's book Tiny Habits,
Yeah.
he says start by flossing one tooth every night in order to develop that habit. It's the same with writing. Like if you start with 5 minutes a day and that's what you commit to, great. If you write for 5 minutes, you have met your commitment. But what I find happens is most people get into it, they enjoy the process so much, they do end up writing more. But you can still write a whole book on 5 minutes a day.
Amazing. Um, Last question here. I have been blessed to be able to watch you like change and evolve your own business. I'm just curious, were there any specific tools, strategies, or moments in our work together that helped you really claim your expertise?
I think acknowledging that the thing that I was being led to do could be my business. So I was thinking that I had to be maybe promoting certain aspects of writing or book writing, but the thing that really lights me up are the stories, the personal stories and the one-on-one coaching. And so that's really where I ended up moving toward. And what happens is I think people can sense that you're doing the thing that lights you up the most, and then they're drawn more to you. And so, the clients I've signed since then have come so much more effortlessly than previously. It just feels natural and easy. And I think that's really important. We
I
tend to
love
shine.
that.
Yeah.
And that makes sense because you're excited to do that specific kind of work.
Yeah.
I love that. Ricki, tell us about your free writing space. That sounds like a really great place to start, or anywhere else that they can find you, learn more about your work.
Sure. So rickiheller.com is my site. And if you're interested in how we can work together, that's all listed there on the front page. But the Write with Ricki it's a free group for anybody who wants to join us. It's every Tuesday at 8:30 a.m. Eastern, and we run for about an hour. And the way it works is it's a Zoom room. It's opened up to everybody. People come in and, we have a little bit of chat for maybe 5 minutes at the beginning. And I want to say this is for anybody who's doing any kind of writing at all. So don't feel you have to be working on a book, or, people come and write their emails for the week, or they come and, it can be anything. Somebody who's working on a blurb for one of her business colleagues, and somebody else is working on a book. Another person was working on a screenplay at one point. Someone else came and just did their morning journal pages. Like, they were just free writing just because they didn't know what else to write about. So it can be anything at all, business or otherwise, and any level. And then we literally just take most of the hour to write in silence, and we're just there on Zoom, all writing with our heads down. And then at the end, I always reserve about 15 minutes. So some people leave right at the end. Other people stay for that 15 minutes to either, if they have questions, it's an opportunity for people to get my expertise on their work. If they want, I can give them feedback on their writing, but that's not in any way an obligation. Like, there are people who just come, write, and then leave. But it's great for that consistency. It's great for accountability. And just, you'd be surprised how it feels like a community, even though we don't really spend most of the time talking. It's just having the other people there to work with is really lovely. So I really enjoy it. And there's a sign up on my site, and also through my Instagram account. It's just, well, I can give you the link to put down afterward. It's a pretty short link. So
Yeah, definitely. We'll put that in the show notes.
great.
Ricki, thank you so much for your time here today. Everyone listening, we'll make sure to have all those links in the comment section. Anything else you want the audience to know about why they should write a book?
It's going to be one of the most fulfilling things you ever do in your life, both for business and personally. I think that's really important to point out, that it's really such a great personal experience.
I love it. Yeah, it's one of those hard things that is totally worth doing.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ricki. Thank you
Thanks,
everyone
Ellen.
for listening, and we'll see you guys here for another episode soon. Hey guys, quick interruption here. I love to talk about politics and culture, but I love to talk about solutions even more. Knowing how to increase wealth is one of those solutions. If you're an established entrepreneur or online coach who's looking to grow their business this year, check out the show notes to see if you qualify for our Scale program. We're helping serious entrepreneurs scale their business using my IG client acquisition system, the very same system that has helped us generate over 70,000 organic leads for our coaching business. If you're done making content that doesn't convert, if you're done having inconsistent cash months, but you have a great offer, you love helping people, and you know you just could blow this thing up if you just got it in front of more eyeballs. And if you're ready for a simpler strategy that doesn't burn you out, check out the show notes now to apply for our Sovereign CEO Scale program. While you're down there, check out the link for my free community. It's called The Vault. The Vault is a curated community of serious business builders. It's where I share my unique systems for growth and where you can actually learn from me live each and every month. So again, if that's you, if you're an established entrepreneur or online coach looking to grow their business this year, head on to the show notes now so that you can see these options for growing your business with me. That's a wrap for today's episode of the Sovereign CEO podcast. If you love what we do here, if these conversations challenge, inspire, or equip you in any way, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Leave a 5-star review. It helps us reach more entrepreneurs just like you who are ready to build wealth, freedom, and solutions that change lives. And if today's episode hit home, share this episode with a friend, because the more of us who are equipped with these tools for freedom, the better. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being critical thinkers, and I'll see you guys next time on another episode of the Sovereign CEO podcast.